Some silences don't belong to peace. They belong to something that used to be alive. Morning light spilled through half-closed blinds, touching the dust that had gathered across Marcus Stone's trophies and framed headlines. Once, those same objects had gleamed like proof that Fortune had a face. His face. Now, they were relics of a man the world had already begun to forget. Marcus sat before a mirror, trying to fix a collar that wouldn't stay straight. His reflection looked foreign, pale, restless, the kind of tired that doesn't come from sleepless nights, but from too much pretending. He had an interview to attend, another desperate attempt to rebuild his image. They said it would help. He wasn't so sure anything could help anymore. On the table beside him sat his old coin, the one that had never failed him when he needed it most. He flipped it. It landed on tails. He tried again. Tails. He stared at it for a long moment, half waiting for the universe to apologize. Didn't. That morning, Marcus Stone, the man who once made luck look loyal, realized he was no longer its favorite. At the ballroom that afternoon, cameras flashed, but the applause felt rehearsed. The questions came sharp, rehearsed too. "Is this your official return?" someone asked. Marcus forced a smile. "You don't return to where you belong," he said. "You simply stand back up." It sounded confident enough for headlines, but empty enough for truth. When the game began, the crowd leaned in, not to cheer, but to witness. His opponents were younger, faster, hungrier. They didn't fear him. They pitied him. The first round slipped away. Then the second. By the third, the whispers had started. "Guess Fortune's done with him." The laughter that followed stung more than the losses. By the fourth round, Marcus pushed everything he had left onto the table. The same grin he wore in his prime stretched across his face, but it no longer reached his eyes. When the final card turned, the room fell into silence. Not the kind that respects, the kind that enjoys watching a fall. He lost. Completely. Again. No one clapped. No one comforted him. The same people who once fought for his attention now stared through him, eager to move on to the next headline. Marcus walked out without a word. Outside, rain fell in cold sheets. The city lights blurred in puddles around his feet. He leaned against a wall, breath shaking. The sound of traffic felt distant, almost merciful. He barely noticed when a familiar voice broke the quiet. "I told you, kid," said Mr. Ray, lighting a cigarette. "Luck's a visitor, not a roommate." Marcus didn't look at him. "I thought I could fix it," he said softly. "I thought if I worked harder, if I deserved it." Ray exhaled smoke into the night. "You never earn fortune, son. You borrow it." And with that, he walked away, swallowed by the rain, leaving Marcus alone beneath the flickering streetlight. That was the night Marcus Stone learned something he should have known all along. Fortune doesn't abandon you. It simply moves to someone else. Days turned into weeks. The stories got crueler. The articles sharper. His calls went unanswered. His apartment emptied, one item at a time, until even the silence began to echo. His name, once the anthem of victory, became a punchline whispered in cafes and comment sections. He scrolled through headlines that read like obituaries for a man still breathing. Each one a reminder that success never dies quietly. It drags its ghosts with it. By the time the eviction notice arrived, he didn't flinch. He just looked around his hollow apartment, at the trophies that had lost their shine, and whispered what had already become his truth. Fortune never leaves quietly. Some journeys aren't made to reach a place. They're made to face what you ran from. Marcus Stone's car moved slowly through the gray arteries of Newark, the city that once held his dreams like a promise. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened with the residue of memory, each puddle catching a reflection of a man who barely recognized himself anymore. He drove past corners that still whispered his name in old graffiti. Past the playground where the younger him had sworn he'd escape poverty or die trying. Now he was back, not as a hero but as a question the city didn't care to answer. The windshield wipers scraped rhythmically, the sound hollow and lonely. Every streetlight he passed flickered like an accusation, and every face he glimpsed on the sidewalks looked away too quickly, as if afraid to make eye contact with the ghost of a man they once admired. He turned off the radio when an old sports commentator's voice came on, his voice, a replay from the days when his name still drew crowds. Marcus Stone, the man with the Midas touch. He almost laughed. Midas touch. They never tell you Midas died starving, surrounded by gold. The highway narrowed into cracked asphalt and unkept sidewalks. Newark hadn't changed much. Only Marcus had. He passed the old convenience store where his mother used to buy milk before sunrise, humming old gospel songs under her breath. He remembered how she'd wait in long lines, clutching every coin like it was holy. That was before he made it big, before he promised her she'd never have to count pennies again. But promises, like fortunes, don't last forever. He parked the car beside a familiar curb and sat there, engine humming, heart racing. The street felt smaller than he remembered, or maybe he had grown too far away from it. Through the windshield, he saw the outline of the old house on Maple Street, its paint faded, the porch light dead. He exhaled and closed his eyes. The air smelled of wet concrete and nostalgia. He didn't move for a while. He just sat there, staring at the house that raised him, the place he had run from when the cameras found him, the one address he refused to return to even when everything began to crumble. He told himself he stayed away because he was too busy, too important, too visible. But deep down, he knew the truth. He didn't come back because he couldn't face what it meant, to be small again, to be her son instead of the world's miracle. The rain began again, softer now, as if the sky itself was hesitant to cry for him. He opened the car door and stepped out. The air was cold, not sharp, but heavy, like it carried old secrets. He walked up the street, his shoes pressing into soft mud. Each step echoed faintly, like footsteps walking beside him, memory catching up. He remembered how, as a kid, he'd sprint down the same path, waving his report card in the air. "Mom, look!" Her laughter would carry across the porch, that deep, joyous sound that made everything in the world feel right. He stopped halfway up the driveway and looked around. The houses on both sides had changed. Some stood empty, others were painted over. But his mother's home, that little square box of warmth and faith, looked untouched by time, and yet somehow drained of life. He climbed the wooden steps and reached for the door. For a moment, his hand hovered there. He expected the faint smell of her cooking, the sound of the television playing one of her favorite church programs. Maybe even her voice, calling out from the kitchen, "Marcus, you finally came home." But when he opened the door, silence met him instead. The kind of silence that doesn't belong to peace, but to something that used to be alive. Inside, the house was frozen in memory. The same floral curtains, the same chipped dining table, and on the wall photographs. Marcus at 10, grinning with a missing tooth. Marcus holding his first trophy. Marcus on television, shaking hands with celebrities. He moved deeper in, each step a trespass into what used to be love. Dust danced through the shafts of dim light cutting across the room. The air carried a faint scent of lavender, her scent, and it struck him like a ghostly embrace. He touched the table where her Bible used to rest. It was still there, open to Psalms 23. The pages had yellowed at the edges, and the ink looked faded, but the words were the same. "The Lord is my shepherd." He whispered the rest, voice breaking before he could finish. He looked toward the small framed photo on the mantel. His mother's face, smiling, proud, alive, staring back at him. Beside it, a single candle sat, burned down to waxy tears. And then, beside the candle, a folded church program. He didn't need to read it. He already knew. His breath hitched. The room seemed to tilt. He sank to his knees, the old wooden floor creaking beneath his weight. Tears blurred his vision. Not the kind that come all at once, but the kind that burned slow, rising from somewhere deep. He reached for her photograph. The glass was cool under his fingertips. Her smile, the same one that had believed in him before the world ever did, looked eternal now. Unchanging. Unreachable. A coin slipped from his pocket and hit the floor, spinning with a metallic ring that cut through the quiet. He froze, watching it spin. The sound was sharp, familiar, like an echo from another lifetime. He didn't reach for it. He just watched. It wobbled, slowed, and finally stopped. Heads. He stared for a long time, whispering. Guess luck finally showed up. The words left his mouth like a confession, like an apology too late to matter. Then, from somewhere within the silence, a faint whisper rose, soft, distant, almost tender. She waited for you, Marcus. His head snapped up. Who's there? No answer. Only the faint rhythm of something, not sound, but feeling pulsing through the room. He stood slowly, clutching the photo to his chest. His reflection flickered faintly in the glass frame. A face aged by regret, by years of chasing everything that didn't matter. He turned toward the hallway. Each step he took deeper into the house felt heavier, as though the air itself carried memory. In the kitchen, he saw her apron still hanging by the stove, faded and untouched. The teapot sat cold. On the counter, a note written in her shaky handwriting. Always believe in what's real, not what shines. He ran his thumb across the ink, tracing every curve of her letters, as if touching them could somehow bring her back. The fridge hummed softly, the only sound in the house. He leaned against it, eyes closed. The whisper came again, faint but certain. She never stopped believing in you. He opened his eyes, scanning the shadows. Nothing, only stillness. He sat at the small table where they used to eat dinner. Him, always talking about what he'd become. Her, always smiling, reminding him to stay grounded. He could still see it. Her hands reaching across the table to hold his. Her voice saying, "Don't let the world make you forget home." He had forgotten. He rested his head in his hands. The guilt pressed down, steady and suffocating. He whispered, "I was going to come back. I just needed to fix things first." The house didn't reply, but if it could have, it might have said. She wasn't waiting for the man on the billboards. She was waiting for her son. He stayed there for hours, lost in the kind of silence that speaks louder than any apology. For the first time in years, Marcus Stone wasn't thinking about luck or fame or fortune. He was thinking about home. The word carried weight now. Not the kind measured by walls or furniture, but the kind that lives in memory, in the sound of someone calling your name from another room, in the smell of food that means love, not luxury. He sat there for a long time, surrounded by the ghosts of the life he left behind. Every object in the room was a reminder of who he had been before the cameras came. The boy with hungry eyes and a mother who believed prayer could build empires. He rose slowly, his hands brushing the dresser she used to keep her scarves in. One drawer was slightly open. Inside, folded neatly, was an envelope with his name written on it in her careful handwriting. He froze. For a second, the world narrowed to that one small piece of paper. He reached for it, hands trembling. The paper was thin, fragile, as if it had been waiting too long. He opened it gently. Inside was a short letter. No decoration, no long words. Just truth. "My son," it began. "If you're reading this, then I am with God. And I know you finally came home." Marcus swallowed hard, his vision blurring. "I watched you from afar. Not through screens or headlines, but through prayer. Every night I asked God to remind you where your gift came from. You thought it was luck. I knew it was grace." He pressed the letter to his chest. The words blurred through tears, but he kept reading. "Do not be ashamed of falling, my son. Only those who stand high enough can fall deep enough to find the ground again. If you are reading this, it means you have found your ground. Don't run from it. Build on it. Love always, Mom." The room seemed to hum with silence. Not the heavy kind that haunts, but the kind that heals. Marcus folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the drawer. He sat on the edge of the bed again, whispering softly, "Thank you for waiting." Outside, the wind shifted. The faint scent of rain mixed with lavender again. Softer this time, almost like approval. He stood and walked through the house, touching walls, opening doors, tracing the life he'd once known. Every step felt like an apology, every breath a confession. He stopped at the old piano in the living room, the one he used to play before ambition replaced music. His fingers brushed the keys. Dust rose like ghosts of forgotten melodies. He pressed one note. It cracked softly, but the sound lingered. Then another, and another. The tune came back slowly, uncertain but familiar. It was his mother's song, the one she hummed when the world was too loud. He played it through, eyes closed, each note like a memory unfolding. When the last note faded, he whispered, "I remember," and for a moment, it felt like she was there, humming along, smiling that quiet smile that had always been his first home. He stayed there until the light shifted, golden and tired, spilling through the lace curtains. Then he stood, gathering the letter and his old coin from the floor. He slipped both into his pocket, not as trophies but as reminders. He walked outside. The air was cool, the world washed clean by rain. The street was quieter now, the kind of quiet that invites reflection. He looked down the road. The same road he once ran through with dreams in his pocket and laughter chasing him. Now he walked it slowly, like a man retracing the steps of his own soul. Children were playing near the corner store, tossing a worn-out ball between them. One of them looked up and stared. "Hey, aren't you that guy? The lucky one?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Not anymore," he said. The boy tilted his head. "Then who are you now?" Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled again. Smaller this time, but real. Maybe just someone learning to earn what he used to borrow. The boy didn't understand, but he nodded anyway and ran off to join his friends. Their laughter trailed into the evening, soft and distant. Marcus walked on, the city stretching out before him, familiar yet changed. For the first time, he didn't feel above it. He felt part of it. He passed the church where his mother used to sing on Sundays. The doors were closed, but he could still hear echoes of hymns inside. He hesitated, then stepped in through the side door. The air smelled of candle wax and wood polish. He walked down the aisle slowly, head bowed, the silence almost sacred. At the front, near the altar, a woman was cleaning the pews. She looked up as he approached. "You're Marcus Stone, aren't you?" she asked softly. He nodded. She smiled faintly. "Your mother was proud of you. Always said you were destined to do something great." Marcus swallowed. "I was," he said. "I just forgot what great meant." "She used to pray for you right there," the woman said, pointing to a candle near the corner. "Every Sunday. Same prayer." "What did she pray for?" "That God would help you see what light really is." Marcus looked at the candle, melted, half-burned, but still standing. He took a deep breath, then lit it again. The flame flickered weakly, then steadied. He whispered, "Then let's start there." He stood for a while watching the flame. It reminded him of something, of nights when he believed luck was light, when he thought fortune was favor. But standing there, he finally understood. Luck is loud, grace is quiet, and only one of them stays when the crowd leaves. He left the church as the sun dipped low. The sky burned orange, washing the street in color. He walked until his legs ached, passing faces that once would have recognized him. Now they didn't, and somehow that felt like freedom. He reached the edge of town, where the old train tracks split the horizon. He stopped there, standing still as the wind picked up. His coin felt heavy in his pocket, not as a charm but as a memory. He took it out and stared at it under the fading light. It had scratches now, dull edges, stories etched in silence. He smiled faintly. "You've done your job," he whispered. He placed it on the rail, then stepped back. The sound of a distant train began to hum through the air, low, steady, inevitable. He watched as the coin trembled under the growing vibration. Then, just as the train roared past, the coin flipped, once, twice, and disappeared into the dust. Marcus watched the dust settle, eyes calm. He didn't chase it this time. Some things weren't meant to be held forever. He turned back toward the city, the setting sun at his back, the road ahead uncertain but real. Each step felt lighter, each breath truer. And for the first time, Marcus Stone walked not toward fortune but toward forgiveness. The night came gently. Lights flickered on one by one, painting the streets in quiet gold. He sat down and paused, his mother's letter still in his pocket, its words echoing softly in his mind. "If you are reading this, it means you have found your ground. Don't run from it. Build on it." He smiled. Maybe storms weren't meant to punish. Maybe they were meant to cleanse. And for the first time in his life, Marcus didn't need luck. He just needed tomorrow. Morning came quietly. Light filtered through the curtains like a hesitant visitor, touching the dust that danced in the air. Marcus Stone stood in the center of the small room, his mother's photograph in his hands. Her smile still felt alive, like the world refused to let it fade. He placed the frame back on the table, straightened it. Outside, the street was waking up. Vendors called. Engines coughed to life. The city that raised him was breathing again. He stepped outside, pulling his coat tighter. The air was sharp, but clean, the kind of morning that carried the scent of forgiveness. As he walked down Maple Street, faces turned. Some recognized him, some didn't, but he wasn't here to be remembered. He was here to make peace. He stopped near the playground, the one with the broken swing. A little boy stood there, tossing a coin, laughing as it spun in the air. The sound echoed, familiar, haunting, pure. Marcus watched, frozen in memory. Then, as the coin slipped from the boy's hand and rolled toward the gutter, Marcus caught it just in time. He smiled faintly and knelt. "Careful," he said. "Luck's a slippery thing." The boy grinned. "You can keep it, mister. I've got more at home." Marcus looked down at the coin, small, ordinary, then back at the boy. He shook his head gently. "No, you hold on to it. But promise me something." The boy tilted his head. "What?" "Don't ever trade it for something that costs you yourself." The boy frowned, confused, but nodded anyway. Then he ran off, his laughter fading into the sound of the morning. Marcus stood there a while, watching. He slipped his hands into his pockets, realizing the old coin. His coin was gone. For the first time, that didn't scare him. Felt right. As he walked away, the wind picked up, carrying the faint hum of a woman's voice, soft, familiar, like a lullaby once sung under the same roof. He stopped, closed his eyes, and smiled. "I hear you, Mom." The sky opened a little. The sun broke through, and in that light, the story of Marcus Stone finally settled. Not in fame, not in fortune, but in peace. Some debts aren't paid in money. Some are paid in moments, of truth, of loss, of love rediscovered. And some journeys aren't about finding luck. They're about learning when to let it go. Some say fortune is borrowed. Others say it's earned. But maybe it's neither. Maybe luck isn't something you hold. Maybe it's something that holds you, until it's done teaching what you refuse to learn. Marcus Stone thought his story was about winning. He was wrong. It was about remembering. Remembering where he came from, and who was waiting when he forgot. Because in the end, every echo returns to its source. And sometimes, the loudest echoes are the ones whispered by regret. If you've ever chased something so far that you forgot who you were, this story was for you. Tell me in the comments, do you believe we make our own luck? Or do you think life keeps the score for us? And if you were Marcus, would you go back home?
Subscribe for more echoes.